Welcome to Beyond the Box. Today we're speaking with Geoff Cooper, who is the co-founder and director of Affinity ID. Thanks for joining us today, Geoff.
You're welcome.
So Geoff, you are the co-founder and partner of a successful data-driven customer engagement agency. With the advances in digital technology and the collection of data, what do you see are the biggest opportunities for marketers today?
The biggest opportunity is actually to remember it's about customer engagement. So it's about people, it's not about technology per se. So the thing about digital technology is it automatically focuses on technology. Now what technology does is it enables us to have consistent, coherent experiences, but we've got to remember that it is actually about having people at the heart of what we're doing and using technology to actually enable that.
So technology is just about collecting the data, and then the data is about, I guess you could think of it as painting by numbers in terms of how your customers look like?
It's a good way to think about it. It is about data, but it's also about insight. So to actually deliver a relevant, personalised experience, there's a couple of things you've got to do. You need to use segmentation to actually achieve that, because that's how we can actually manage and control the amount of effort and organisation that has to go into delivering stuff. But it's also about using individual customer data and blending that with the paint by numbers, and it's the combination of both of those that actually delivers that real personal experience for customers.
I guess it's it's bringing those segments to life and making sure that how you market to those segments is really meaningful for the customer experience.
It's about marketing to individuals. Right, so we've got to remember that. It's about marketing to individuals. It is about using different insights from techniques like segmentation, but bringing that together in a way that is unique and relevant to that individual customer.
Excellent. So those are the biggest opportunities. What are the biggest challenges facing marketers to make the most of these opportunities?
So one of the biggest challenges, obviously, is the amount of technology that's actually out there. There's now well over 2,000 marketing technology companies that are actually providing software. A year ago, there was only 1,000. So one of the big challenges we've got is actually thinking about what kind of technology do we want to be using, how do we use it, and then also importantly, how do we actually convince our organisations to start using this sort of stuff. And one of the big challenges that people have is that they quite often think that the best way to do that is to start with a very small scale pilot. And it might be about a simple piece of messaging. Problem with that is that what customers actually experience is the total organisation. So if you think about that, if what we're saying to them through a particular marketing channel is very, very different from what they experience on the phone in the call centre or in the store or wherever it actually is, unless we can actually create a very consistent and coherent brand expression across all those touch points, then they're not going to believe anything that we say. So the big challenge in that is actually how do we achieve that and how do we actually get that happening at scale? And it's more about organising to achieve that than thinking just about a single piece of technology.
How it can be integrated consistently across all the different touch points, as you said. So if those is like the biggest challenge, how is Affinity ID helping its clients when they come to you and say, I've got this problem? What are you actually doing to help them?
Basically, the way we approach it, well, there's two interesting things about that. Firstly, no, I'm not going to go there because I'll get in deep shit for that. How are we helping our clients? Very, very first thing that we actually do is we like to pull together teams that comprise people from different parts of the organisation, because we need to get those different perspectives and actually get people working together. One of the key things about becoming a customer-centric organisation is about using customer data. To become data-driven, you've actually got to be aligning the whole organisation. So the quickest, simple way to do that is to actually get people from different parts of the organisation and use a design approach to actually think about what is the best thing that we can do, how can we do it quickly, how can we fail fast, how can we learn, and then start to roll that out. So one of the key things is that you've actually got to get these programs up and running quickly. An example with a client is we actually managed to get a full data-driven program up and running inside 12 weeks.
Wow.
It took them 18 months to get approval for that 12-week pilot, by which stage we'd already delivered tens of millions of dollars in incremental revenue. So that's what agility is about.
Being agile, and I guess with lots of businesses I know with clients I work with, they've got to have the platform to even support the kind of data-driven insights that they can actually get from them, from collecting data from customers. So that's, as you said, you've got to get all the stakeholders involved, because it's actually quite a big process that's going to have to go for the organisation in terms of changes, physical and attitudinal as well.
But let's not remember, it's easier to show people than to ask for permission sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So a key problem many New Zealand marketers face when implementing the latest technology is you hear this across many different industries, is basically we have a really small population, so the return on investment is quite difficult to approve. So what advice would you give to marketers who are struggling to make their budgets stretch in order to include the sorts of services that you offer?
I absolutely hate the scale question, and the reason for this is really, really simple. New Zealand is actually a perfect scale, right? We are big enough to actually be able to do some really interesting, innovative stuff, and we're also big enough to actually need to use the sort of technologies and things that are available.
So where do you think these arguments are, sorry to cut in, but where do you think these arguments are coming from then?
I think what actually happens is that people forget there is a huge benefit to the scale that we do have, right? We work with organisations in North America, right? I can tell you that it is far easier and quicker to actually get alignment and meetings and conversations happening between your marketing staff and your IT people, your technologists and your sales service people in New Zealand than it is overseas, right? So one of the things we've got to remember about that scale is that the smallness of it actually should let us become a lot more agile and faster. And we need to remember that, and we need to embrace that and actually use that to our advantage. Now, the real problem is that quite often some of this technology actually costs a lot of money, right? And quite often you hear horror stories about people that are spending millions and millions of dollars implementing big industrial scale platforms and software. You've got to avoid that. There are other technologies now that are available that actually deliver the same sort of results without that cost. And you can actually use those smaller, cheaper, more open source technologies to actually get these programs up and running. The point about that is that when you've got them up and running, you have demonstrable business results that actually show what level of return you can actually get. And from that level of return, it's really easy to build a business case to scale up to go more industrial strength.
Hence why the pilots and the more cheaper options to start out with first.
Yep. But again, you've got to be thinking big. You can't do a small, narrow little pilot. You've got to actually think about it from a multi-channel point of view to start with, and also an organisational wide point of view. And you've got to bring all those people along the journey to actually be part of that experience. Now, if you do that, you can actually figure out what you can afford to invest to get the returns that you want. But the scale problem that we have is still a scale advantage.
Yeah, good. That's a really good way of looking at it. Excellent. So thinking now to change tack slightly, next 12 months, what do you think is one of the key things that marketers need to get right in New Zealand over the next 12 months, given the changing global environment and all sorts of things?
So there's a couple of things actually. I think firstly, something which is not new. We've got to keep remembering that what we're doing is interacting with people. And so that's actually about understanding deeply the emotional experiences that we're actually delivering. Because there is a lot of good brain science coming out now that actually tells us how this stuff works. And one of the key things is about being consistent and coherent across everywhere that we're actually dealing with customers. So I'd actually encourage people to go read some brain stuff.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be geeky. There's good popularisation of some of it. But what it does remind us is that actually people make decisions before they consciously think about them. And our brains are really, really wired to actually pick up on very subtle clues about what's right and what's not.
You're talking about system 1 and system 2 thinking?
A little bit. I'm also talking about framing, frames of reference.
Yeah.
One of the other things that Kiwi marketers have got to remember is that the benchmark and ways that people will be thinking about the experiences that they are delivering will be much, much more influenced by what people are experiencing on online sites overseas, by buying shoes from Italy.
Yep.
So your competitor, in terms of the experience that you're delivering, will be as much driven by other industries in other countries. And so if you are a shoe seller,
Yeah.
right, you need to be more worried about what's actually happening with fashion luggage or fashion or what's happening in websites in the States or Europe, then you actually need to be worrying about what your local competitors are actually doing, because that's the framework within which people will be judging what you're actually doing experience-wise.
So just our last question for today, words of wisdom. What would you tell marketers today as they work within the ongoing digital innovation and change, and how are they going to keep pace with that?
They've got to look wide. Right, so and basically it's about customer stories, which is what we're chatting about a bit earlier. You need to actually go out and talk to customers. You need to hear what they're saying. You then need to go visit what they're visiting. You need to actually make sure you spend the time to see the world through their eyes.
It's really immersing yourself in your customer.
Yes, very, very much so. And if you don't do that, you're going to design stuff in the wrong way. You know, be that a process, a piece of communication or whatever. The best thing anyone can ever do is go and experience what your customer experiences.
Excellent. Thanks, Geoff. We really appreciate your time today.
That's
It's
right.
been really interesting talking to you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.